We'd like to welcome you to the Lake Central School Board meeting for Monday, October 7th, 2019. If you could please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There is a sign-up sheet in the back of the room if you would like to make a comment during our board meeting or at the end of our board meeting. Moving on to our agenda, our approvals, deletions, additions. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you, Mr. Baxo. Under Roman numeral 7, B1 and 7D2, you do have some revised professional leave requests, and they are at your workstations.
We have a motion from Dr. Malco.
Second.
We have a second from Ms. Suze. I'll give you all a few seconds to look through the documents. For any comments or questions, if you have any, just go ahead and speak up. No comments or questions? All right, let's take a vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to our correspondence, Ms. Suze.
There is none this evening.
All right, thank you very much. Our liaison committee updates, and I'd like to start with Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. Boxell. As far as Personnel Interview Committee, nothing to report at this time.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Malco?
Nothing to report for Lake Central Education Foundation. We do meet next Monday at 6 o'clock. If you'd like to join us, we'd love to have volunteers. And would you like for me to go on?
Yeah.
To legislative. I did forward to all of you the document that was used by Fort Wayne Public Schools years ago to really identify to the state that they are not going to be locked into being graded by one test, and they were using a, as you call it, a dashboard of different assessments. So I forwarded that to you. It's the original one from Fort Wayne, and I also forwarded to you the modification draft that we had done a couple of years ago. And I hope that as school board members, we can have dialogue about that and get something done about that. The other issue that we need to think about and talk about perhaps is following the lead of some of our area school corporations and being a part of the lawsuit against private schools, charter schools taking one of our school buildings for $1 a year. That just speaks, it's just not, is not just not good. So,
Yeah, sure.
I know there's lawsuits happening that way, and do we want to be involved with that? Make our statement.
I think we should have that discussion as well.
So perhaps I could be on the next agenda. Is that when we would discuss it, or would it be more in?
Dr. Malco, Dr. Baracco could probably put that on. Okay, is that it? Thank you. Ms. Suze?
Nothing for St. John Redevelopment Committee, but Dollars for Scholars. We had our homecoming on the 28th. Went off without a hitch. Thank you to all that volunteered and helped. And then our next big event is our Ghouls at the School on Tuesday, October 29th.
All right, thank you very much. And Dyer Parks Department and Dyer Redevelopment Committee, they meet later this week, so I'll be in attendance for those. And now moving on to our official school board business topics, our consent agenda. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you, Mr. Baxo. Seek board approval for the minutes from our work session last meeting, September 16th, as well as our regular meeting from September 16th.
So moved.
We have a motion from Dr.
Well,
Malco.
let's approve those claims and payroll extracurricular expenditures, too, while we're at it.
All right, shall do that. We have a motion from Dr. Malco and
Second.
a second from Mr. Marshall. Any comments or questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we move on to our public comments regarding action items. Any public comments? Hearing none, we will move on to our regular agenda this evening. Dr. Baracco.
Okay, for our first item, we are going to recognize 3 high school boys who came up with a pretty neat idea that was in the paper not too long ago. Food driven. We're going to have Richard Moore provide some details while we rearrange our seating and get out front to thank these guys for their good work.
Thank you, Dr. Baracco, school board members.
very proud of three Lake Central High School seniors. These three young men wanted to do something for their community. They wanted to do something similar to like a food drive. This is, what they came up with is known as food driven. They kind of got this idea, they watched the post office, heard about the post office, where they did a food pickup from houses and then took it to local pantries. They were concerned that, this happens once a year. And they said, we could do something better than that more times a year. So they came up with a concept similar to Uber, where you type in or log in and give them a 2-hour window, and they will come and pick up the food donation from your house and then deliver it to the local food pantry. So tonight, I wanted to call these gentlemen up and thank them for going above and beyond. Lake Central is very proud of you. So we have Hamaz Abdugofa. Connor Courage. And Joey Lopez. Thank you, gentlemen. Lake Central School Corporation is very proud.
Gentlemen, great job, great job. Congratulations to you, nice job.
Excellent idea. Great idea. Great job. Thank you so much.
Oh, cool. Congratulations, guys. Great job.
Richard, thank you.
Thank you. Good work.
All right, my next item is to present to the board the collective bargaining agreement. And what I've done for the board's simplicity is to cut the formal offer summary down to those particular changes in the agreement. If anybody's interested in seeing the entire bargaining agreement, it can be found at our website, www.lcsc.us, under important news. But I've listed the 6 items that have changed with the page number that's addressed to them. Now, before I go through those 6 items, I do want to share with the people in the room that the General Assembly, when they passed this legislation to have this new process last spring, they required that we do a hearing when we make the public aware that we're going to start negotiations, which was at our September 16th meeting. However, at the September 16th meeting, all we declared was, okay, we're open for bargaining, and we're going to bargain salary, wages, and fringe benefits. So there wasn't a whole lot of meat or anything else, for that matter, for the public to note a comment about. So it seemed awkward, and as I understand it, I was absent, that no one was here to comment. But tonight, the law does not require anybody to be allowed to comment on it. But I am going to ask the board if anybody, after they hear the details, if they would want to come to the podium and comment, that we suspend our normal rules of not letting people comment on an item if it's not an action item during the meeting. And so, and then the interesting part is then again in 2 weeks from now, when the board actually does the final approval, the public again gets an opportunity to comment, and that would be our normal process because it will be an action item in 2 weeks. So to go through the items, the first is a $4,000 raise to all teachers who worked at Lake Central last school year and had a rating of effective or highly effective. And that's on page 13 in the agreement. Number 2, an additional 1.75% from the current 0.75 to 2.5% to the 401A contribution for all certified staff, and that's to begin in July 2020. Number 3, a $50 stipend for any teacher who attends a summer workshop through the Northwest Indiana Superintendent Study Council or any workshop sponsored by Lake Central School Corporation. That's on page 27. Increase the minimum teacher salary at Lake Central School Corporation to $46,300. It's on page 12. Number 5, a loyalty salary increase of $2,000 to any teacher who did not receive increment in 2011, 2012, and 2012, 2013, and were not at the top of the then salary schedule. So if they only missed one of those years, that they would not get the full $2,000. They would get the other amount that they didn't receive last year, which in this case is $550. And then there are some new stipends on pages 23 and 27, as you can see listed on that sheet. And so those are the 6 main areas of changes to the collective bargaining agreement that we will be seeking board approval on in 2 weeks. Are there any questions or comments from the board before we ask the public if they have anything to say?
Any comments from the board?
I have none.
No, I have none as well. Okay. We can go ahead and ask for comments from the audience then. Hearing none? Okay, we'll continue on then. Dr. Vrocko.
Okay, thank you. So we'll be back in 2 weeks seeking board approval for that item. My third item is just to let the board know that we are going to sign on the MOU for the new grant for the Lake County Tobacco Prevention and Cessation Coalition. As I mentioned to my peers last week at our regional superintendent's meeting, the coalition requires that to be in this memo of understanding that we all have tobacco and nicotine-free campuses, which we do. And the important thing for us is by being in this partnership, the grant money that they receive from the Master Tobacco Settlement does bring some guest speakers to the region, and we would be able to take advantage of having one or more of those presentations in one or more of our schools. I do believe that based on the schedule for this fall and based on how many superintendents indicated a desire to have access to this, I don't know the guy, but some people in the audience might know this actor, singer. I never heard of him because I'm too old, but evidently he's popular in Hollywood, and he's coming through the first week in November. But because we've sort of spearheaded, we will at least get one presentation. And, you know, I did say to the executive director of the coalition that I think every school should get one before any school gets more than one. So, but we'll keep you posted on that.
Are you going to tell us his name?
I can't remember his name. I'm not keeping it a secret on purpose. Any questions about the coalition or its work or our role with them?
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Okay, the fourth item, you got it in your packet, so I'm not going to dwell on it, but it was nice for us last month to be able to help out Lake Ridge schools, specifically Calumet High School, when they had a tragedy in their swimming pool, and it impacted their school in a very seriously negative way. We were able to send a few people up there to support the students and staff at Calumet High School, and their superintendent sent us a nice letter, so I forwarded it on to you. And I thank our staff members who headed up there for a few hours and supported them. And I think it's what we should do in our education community in the region, is help each other out when we can. So we were very happy to be able to provide those services to Calumet High School.
Yeah, I want to comment and say I commend you guys on that. After reading that thank you letter, you could see it came from the heart when she wrote that as well.
Okay, and then my final item this evening, it's listed as 5 items because that's how we've chosen to list the board policies that we're updating as individual, but I seek board approval of 5 through 9 in totality. These 5 policies were all presented and discussed at our work session on September 16th, and with board approval, we will get them updated on our online board policy packet that's available at our website.
Move to approve.
A motion from Mr. Marshall,
Second?
a second from Ms. Suze. Any comments or questions regarding those 5 board policies? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote on it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Dr. Rocco. Moving on to our Director of Human Resources, Terry Mucha.
Thank you very much. We are recommending that the following certifications, classified appointments, and so forth be approved, but I just wanted to bring to your attention that between Leslie Hathaway, Sue Spicer, Deborah Sanders, and Kim Freeman, they have 138.5 years of service to Lake Central, 167.5 years of service to education. That's pretty remarkable.
It's amazing. Yes. All right. Yeah.
Move to approve?
All right, Ms. Suze with the motion, and I will second that motion. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. I have one professional leave form for Christian Flores. It was just the rest of his dates. He has already started his first time, and these are the rest of the dates for the ASBO Leadership Academy.
Okay. Thank you.
So,
Oh, we have a motion. Dr. Malco
so moved.
with a motion?
Second?
A second from Mr. Marshall. Any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. Just wanted to bring to your attention that when we attended the ISBA conference on September 30th and October 1st, and I wanted to thank the board for allowing us to go to that, there was a presentation on telling your district's story. And in this, it was a chance to bring together stakeholders from all the different levels of Lake Central and to inform them about all the good things that are going on and in Lake Central. So about 3 or 4 schools across the state have tried this. They have 6 to 8 meetings a year. I was thinking that maybe we'd start with 5 to 6 meetings a year. They make a decision whether to hold it during the day so you could actually watch the kids in action, or to hold it at night where more people could be available to come. They go to a different building or a different place each time. One time they meet in transportation, one time they meet food service, one time they ride the bus. They might visit the high school or the middle school or the elementary schools just to see all the good things that are going on in the schools. It isn't where they're just going to sit down and hear a lecture. It's something that they're going to participate in and talk about the things that are good in the Lake Central schools. And I think it would be interesting to start something like that. It was done in Plainfield, for example, and they found it to be very successful. The people became great advocates for the school district. And so we're thinking that could be one of our goals next year, to look into this and to have our own Lake Central cadre of stakeholders. One of the requirements would be to attend a fascinating school board meeting, and the other would be to follow administrator for a half a day. So I think it would give people a good idea of what we do here at Lake Central. So we'd be interested in starting that for next year.
Okay, that sounds great. Mr. Marshall?
Well, I'm just sitting here mulling what Terry has mentioned. It seems like a very, let's say, acceptable procedure, but I'm concerned that notification will get out to sufficient numbers of people. Do you have any idea or concept of how we'll notify people that?
I just got this last week.
Howard, I think it would be an invitation piece, and I think you would try to, if you can remember when our consultant surveyed our public before we went to the taxpayer to test messages, I think we would solicit
That way.
24 or 36
Yeah,
participants.
we're looking for
Okay.
20 to 25,
And-
not a huge group.
And I think if they make a commitment to, let's call it 6 events during the year, then that's that cohort. That's the group of
Okay.
people who get the special treatment, and hopefully that they find it interesting enough that they tell other people if they do a call out, or if you get the call, say yes, because you learn from it. You know, if you could picture Leadership Northwest Indiana, this sort of would be that sort of format, but just about what we're doing here.
And we want people who want to devote the time to learning about Lake Central. And there's food, so.
Food, okay. Can I volunteer?
Are you preparing?
No, they want to eat it, so.
No, it's an excellent idea.
Okay,
I'm all for it.
Great.
thank you. Would that be it?
That's it for me, thank you.
All right, thank you. Moving on to our Director of Primary Education, Teresa Schoen.
Thank you. My first item is to seek your approval of the professional leave requests that were included in your packet.
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Ms. Suze,
Second?
a second from Mr. Marshall. Any comments or questions regarding the professional leave request? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. My second item is to seek your approval of the field trip request that was also included in your packet.
So moved.
We have a motion from Mr. Marshall, and I will second that motion. And I have one question about those field trips. There's a lot of kindergartners, I think, going on that one.
Well, you can't make it through kindergarten without going on a pumpkin patch.
Yeah. So we got a lot of chaperones probably,
We
right?
have lots of
Lots of
chaperones.
All
Yes.
right, that's good to hear. All right, we'll take a vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. And my third item is to share elementary class sizes. As Sarah and I always do after our fall ADM date, which was September 13th, we always bring class size information to the board. I included a chart in your packet, and then earlier today, I sent a little extra information with the number of sections by grade level. Sure. So, any questions?
I noticed they were a little high at the fourth grade level, I think, the class sizes. Is there any remedy that we've got maybe possibly in the works to assist those teachers? at that
Well,
level?
at the elementary level, we did, this year, we've hired 13 additional paraprofessionals to support students.
Okay. All right. Just wondering, because there was a discrepancy between, first, second, third, and then you see that fourth grade number.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? No? All right, thank you. Moving on to our Director of Secondary Education, Sarah Castaneda.
Thank you. I'm going to pick up where Teresa left off at with the secondary class size summary. On the report, you see information for the fifth grade average class sizes at the 3 middle schools, as well as a breakdown by language arts, math, science, and social studies for the core areas. At the high school level, then you see it broken down by the 4 core academic departments, as well as the world language department. Any questions?
Any comments or questions about the class sizes, middle school?
Just similar to what Don said, I had some apprehensions about some of the class sizes at the secondary level. I don't know if there's anything that can be done, but to have 30 kids in class, especially 32, especially if you want to promote writing, and it's just very challenging.
Correct. If you look at the English numbers, none of them are above 28. We especially try to keep the composition and class sizes low because of the quantity of writing in there, and those are averaging out at 23 and a third per class. With the slightly higher courses of sociology, anatomy and physiology, and forensic science, those are all electives. And I know, being a former high school teacher myself, sometimes it's a decision between them splitting that down and buying out your prep, which means you don't have a time to take a breath throughout the course of the day, or keeping them a little bit higher at 30, 31, and 32, and managing it that way. It's not ideal, but we were focused on trying to bring down some of the classes where there either was very intensive writing, or some of our classes where we know our students are struggling, like the ICP and earth space science classes. So I think the trade-off was to keep some of those courses low that needed the extra support, and go a little higher on those elective courses where students are choosing to be in there.
So do we do cross-curriculum writing, like, is there writing in forensic science in some of those areas, or?
They write when they do their lab reports and things like that. They definitely write out explanations of things and problem solve through different scenarios they're given. I know when I taught social studies, we did a wealth of writing in there, and definitely gave me an appreciation for our language arts teachers having to grade it all.
I just know that lower class sizes, then we would have less of the scantrons, I would think, and more of the authentic assessments, so, but just some questions I have.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Malkow. Any other comments or questions? No?
All right, for my second item, I am seeking your approval for the professional leave request as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion from Dr. Malkow, and I will second that motion. Any comments or questions regarding those leave requests? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. And for my last item, I am seeking your approval for the field trip requests.
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Ms. Suze and a second from Mr. Marshall. Any comments or questions regarding the field trip requests? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to our Director of Student Services, Becky Gramala.
My first item is to seek your approval for the one professional leave request that was included in your packet.
So moved.
We have a motion from Mr. Marshall, and I will second that motion. Any comments or questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay. For my second item, I just wanted to give the board some information from the ICASE conference I was able to attend last week. So ICASE is the Indiana Council of Administrators of Special Education, and they hold a state conference twice a year. And I was there last Thursday and Friday. So we did hear from Nancy Holsappel, who's our State Director of Special Education. She shared with the group that Indiana achieved, so just like we're rated as districts, the state is rated by the federal government on their special education outcomes and compliance, and the state met all requirements, so she thanked those of us who are down here in the trenches working on that. She shared that Indiana has a total of 165,912 students with disabilities, and 13,285 of those are preschool age students. That number seemed a little low to me, but that's what she shared. We will be continuing with results-driven accountability. If you remember, I shared that information with you last year, where they're moving beyond just compliance when rating us in special education and looking more at our student outcomes. One thing I shared when I provided that information to the board last year is we were concerned, special ed directors across the state were concerned with the practice of ranking us. So they basically ranked us and put us into quintiles based on our data. And our concern as state directors was that was comparing a district of our size maybe to a charter school with a significantly different population than what we would have. And so they did listen to those complaints, and they're now comparing us based on the size of our district. So not necessarily demographics of the district, but at least size, which should give us a little bit of a more fair comparison. Those determinations will be sent out in November. Another piece of that RDA for us last year was our growth on iStep. So just like what's happening in other areas, they're sort of trying to figure out what they're going to do with this iLearn information. We're not in special education rated on our passing rate. It is our student growth, but there's really no way to measure growth this year with the change in tests. So we're on hold, but they're telling us they're still going to get our ratings out to us in November. The other thing talked about was the 1% cap on students participating in the alternative assessment. So these are our students who don't participate in iLearn but take a different assessment, and they're typically students with more severe disabilities. That 1% cap is something that comes from the federal level. Indiana is currently averaging about 1.21% of students taking that alternative assessment. The state applied for a waiver last year, so they did not receive any sort of punitive punishment, I guess, from the federal government, but that waiver is going to be running out. So as special education directors, we're concerned that if the state loses some type of funding because of exceeding that cap, that will be pushed onto us. And our concern is it's really an arbitrary number. Mm-hmm. It's not based on anything, and it gets in the way of us making the right choices for students. So here in Lake Central, we're typically around 1.4 to 1.6% of our students who participate in that alternative assessment. We review every one of those. Those decisions are made by our case conference committee. We're very comfortable that is the right assessment for those students. Mm-hmm. If we are forced to, because of this cap, move the students to an assessment that's not appropriate for them, that's something that will be very problematic for me, for our students, for our teachers. So we're going to continue as ICASE to advocate that really be looked at and some different determinations made.
Okay.
We also heard from Patrick Rhodes from the IDOE, who is a complaint investigator, and he let us know that the state has put together what's called a dispute resolution team. So they are looking at our dispute resolution process in special education. And the team is comprised of DOE staff, parents, attorneys, and administrators, and they're making recommendations to the General Assembly. So as directors, we have concerns about the lack of training for our hearing officers. They participate in one training for a couple hours a year, and then are believed to be able to interpret some pretty complex special education law. And then we're also concerned about the current appeals process. So what happens now, if a school or a parent's unhappy with an outcome, that appeal goes to the federal court. And the federal court knows little to nothing about special education law and what we do here in schools. So, and there's no verbal arguments, they're just reading through the transcripts of that hearing and expected to make a decision. And what we're finding is they send it back to the hearing officer, who's the person who made that decision in the first place, which really leaves us without a very effective system, and parents and schools are spending a lot of money on a system that's not necessarily working. So we're interested to hear what that outcome is going to be from that dispute resolution team. You know, some of the information they shared is that during the last school year, 84 due process hearings were filed for by parents. 75 of those were settled. And they're settled primarily because as a school, we have to weigh the money we're going to spend to mount a defense versus the potential outcome. So only one hearing went to an actual decision. Everything else was settled. And the concern that we've had here in Lake Central is that when attorneys figure out that you're willing to settle, they tend to keep coming back to you. But then again, you have to balance that with the stress on your staff and the potential for an outcome that's not going to be in your favor anyway. And right now, when they look at, you know, the pace of filings this year compared to last year, the state is already ahead as far as the number of complaints filed, number of due process hearings. So that's concerning. I went to several presentations by attorneys. You know, the general consensus from all of them is that documentation is critical. If you don't have something on paper, it didn't happen. And so we can be doing great things, but if it comes down to a legal situation, we don't have documentation to back that up, it might as well not be happening. And so that's, you know, it's just one more thing that we have to worry about that takes us away from educating children, but a necessary evil of special education at this point. You know, and they said the best line of defense is good communication with parents, making sure that they know what you're doing and that they can trust us. And that's something we work really hard on here, and our special education teachers and the staff all do. Always something we can do better. But that was, so those were some of my big takeaways. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Yes?
Becky, with this dispute resolution team, hearing that they're going to be actively involved, is it centrally located in Indianapolis, or did they go to on-site school?
They're meeting in Indianapolis, but there are representatives from Northwest Indiana. So actually, the director from NYSEC is involved, and the director from South LaPorte County. So they're both part of my special education roundtable, and so they are taking feedback from this area to those meetings in Indianapolis and
So
sharing.
people do not necessarily always have to travel down.
Right, yeah, so this team is just the meetings of people who are trying to decide how to better move forward with this
Gotcha.
process. And they do have, everything's archived, and you can watch the parent testimony, the attorney testimony, all of that through the DOE website. I have not had the time to look at it yet, but I intend to.
Thank you.
So I remember when you talked about the results-driven accountability, and we had some confusion about it. Are you feeling better about it now after?
I feel better about the comparison group being changed. So it'll be interesting to see. It's just, you know, we're a large district and we have a reputation for providing good special education services. So for us to be compared to a significantly smaller district that doesn't have the population of students we have, that was always a concern for me. So
Wasn't there also a question about preschool assessment?
yes, and so that was sort of addressed by the Department of Ed adopting a new preschool assessment. But this year's results will still be based on our old assessment. So we'll see what things look like this year, and our staff has been trained and we're moving forward with iSprout, which is the new assessment. So we'll have those results next fall when we get that accountability.
All right, any other questions? All right. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. I see that Mr. Ledger has nothing on the agenda. Mr. Moreno has nothing on the agenda. So we'll move on to our Director of Business Services, Rob James. They didn't want to hear. No, they didn't want to hear what you had to say.
So this is the point where we're at the end of the budget process. And 2 meetings ago, I gave the budget presentation for 2020. And then this is the meeting where we, as the board, formally adopt the 2020 budget appropriations and the advertised tax rates. So we have a variety of resolutions to go through. So the first resolution that was presented in your board packet is for the 2020 budget appropriations and tax rates.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion from Dr. Malco, and we have a second from Mr. Marshall. Any comments about our 2020 budget appropriations and tax rates? All right, hearing none, we'll take a vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The second resolution is to adopt the 2020 capital projects plan that was presented to the school board.
So moved.
A motion from Mr. Marshall,
Second?
and a second from Ms. Suze. Any comments or questions about the capital projects plan? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The third resolution is to adopt the 2020 school bus replacement plan that was presented to the school board.
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Ms. Suze,
Second?
a second from Mr. Marshall. All right, any comments or questions regarding the bus replacement fund plan? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. The next resolution is an annual resolution that we're going to be doing from here on out, and this is one of the effects of the House of Gold Act 1009 from 2017, where, as you recall, with the new education and operations funds, that some of the expenditures that used to be paid out of the old general fund moved to operations, even though now all of our state support still goes into the education fund. So we are required to, in essence, follow the money and transfer some of that revenue we get into the education fund, into the operations fund. There's been a lot of talk in the General Assembly at this last session where we're trying to limit the amount of money that school districts pull out of their education fund to their operations. We've heard this 15% number thrown out, which is really just an arbitrary number that's been thrown out, but it's made its way into legislation. As we talked about at the budget session, there are a lot of school districts who get hit with either tax caps, circuit breaker, local election rates, you name it. So they're not getting the tax revenue in the operations fund, where they may have to move additional dollars out of their education fund to support those security, bus drivers, custodians. So lots of school districts are over 20%. There's a handful that are in that 15 to 20% range. Everyone's really trying to watch those expenditures to get them down. With that being said, my estimates are we're probably going to be around the 10, maybe 12% amount that I'm looking to transfer from education to housing. We're not really buttoned up against that 15% mark. It's not an issue here. We're able to keep more dollars into our education fund to put that money to the tax funds here. So with that being said, this resolution would authorize the Director of Business Services to transfer $5,670,000 from education fund to the operations fund for calendar year 2020. Now we do that evenly on a monthly basis, and that's about $1.5 million less than this year.
Okay.
On the recommendation of Mr. James, I move that we approve.
Okay, a motion from Mr. Marshall,
I second.
and a second from Dr. Malco. All right, any comments or questions? No? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. That wraps up all the budget resolutions, and now I still have 2 more items for your approval. The first is seek your approval to lease the farmland that we have. This is on approximately 101st and Blaine, I think the southeast side of the district. We have 153 acres that we rent out to farmers, and we've been doing this for many years. The current lease that we have is coming due at the end of this year, so
Move to approve.
We have a motion from Ms. Suze,
Second?
second from Mr. Marshall. Is this a one-year lease, or is it a two-year lease, or?
In the past, we've done a 2-year lease with the school district having an option for the third.
Okay.
And we would continue to do that.
Okay.
This time as well.
All right, thank you. All right.
Farmers actually like having a little more extended, that way, near the end of the season, they can get, if the same person's gonna happen next year.
Yeah.
They can do some more prep work here in the fall for the following year. So even if the farmer changes for next year,
Yeah.
we try to do it now in the process, so if there's gonna be a change in hands, someone else is looking at it.
Okay. All right, thank you, Rob. All right, let's take a vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. And then my final item is to seek your approval for the donations that were part of your board packet.
Move to approve.
And there's a motion from Ms. Suze, and I will second that motion. Any comments or questions regarding our donations? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. James. Moving on to public comments. We have no public comments this evening. Wait, you did arrive late. Okay, did you have a? Okay, if you could come up to the podium and state your name and address. Oh, if you could sign in as well on our sign-in sheet. Yeah, this podium right here. Thank you. I don't think she wants to go up there with you. If you could please state your name and address. Oh, not a problem. Okay. We do have a policy on bullying, Dr. Barco. Okay.
We've got a well-developed program, but, how we deal with cases varies from case to case.
Would I be able to move forward and ask you then, nothing, just more general. A sign that would say, would this be considered bullying? I kill you and I will kill you with animation. Would that be considered bullying, Mr. Burns?
Yes, that would be considered inappropriate behavior. Depending on how repetitive it is, whether it would require multiple incidents to be considered bullying technically, but either way, it's very inappropriate.
And so if there were other things accompanying this also would be considered. At what point, and then how do you proceed after that? When you if there were someone that received something like that, in addition to many other things, where is the line drawn?
Well, the school has to aggressively, pursue remediating the problem. And again, it all depends on the particulars of the matter.
At what point does it go to the authorities?
Well, the school would have to deem it to be a credible threat that could be carried out by an individual. Certainly, you as a parent have the right to go to the authorities as well.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Savalas. Right, I think that was it for our public comments. Moving on to our board comments and consideration of future agenda items. Mr. Marshall.
Thank you, I have nothing this evening.
Okay. Dr. Malko? Nothing this evening? Ms. Suze?
I have nothing this evening.
Nothing as well. All right. And I think I'll follow suit because I don't think I have anything to speak of this evening as well. So we'll go on to our board calendar of future activities. Dr. Varacco.
So we have fall sports coming to a close, so check your calendar for some of those tournaments and other season-ending events. The fall play is this Thursday through Saturday at the high school. And one final thing, when I was at the superintendent's regional meeting today, I was given this plaque from Riley Children's Hospital. I was very proud to receive it, the only school corporation in District 1 where each school raised a minimum of $1 per student to support Riley's Children's Hospital. And as I told my peers today at the meeting, if you've ever had a family member served by Riley's, which I have, and if you have ever talked to any families who have had their children helped by Riley's, you know that those people never forget it. And so I'm proud that our schools, our principals, our teachers, and our students raise money for this worthy cause. I do know that we send a lot of kids to Chicago as well and not to Indianapolis, but we have had kids go to Indianapolis, and it's nice to know that they treat students, young people, in a great way when they have serious medical concerns. So this will go in our large conference room with the other 4. That's 5 in a row for Lake Central. Yay, yay. And way to go, staff.
I'd like to have a round of applause for that.
Yeah. All right. And we're meeting back here when?
We're back here in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. All right. Thank you. I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.